happy to have our Professor Farid here because I've been expecting him for 2 years. The first time recommended by Zachary, and I've been thinking how we can get an opportunity to invite him over. And after Dr. Su joined us, she proposed this opportunity to us, and I think it is a good chance. So I will ask Dr. Su Li-Xin to do an introduction to Professor Khaldun. So,
Hello. Hi. So let me do a brief introduction to Professor Syed Farid Alatas' work. So Professor Syed Farid Alatas is a professor of sociology at the National University of Singapore, where he also had a joint appointment with the Malay Studies department, and he used to be the head of the department as well. So his field of interest includes political economy, the philosophy and sociology of social science, so social theory, the state and practice of the social sciences, the teaching of classical sociology, sociology of Islam, classical Islamic thought, the study of Muslim revival or intra-Muslim sectarianism and inter-religious dialogue. So actually Professor Farid Alatas' works can be roughly put into 4 categories. First is his early works on the post-colonial states of Southeast Asia. His book, Democracy and Authoritarianism, The Rise of the Post-Colonial State in Indonesia and Malaysia, was published in 1997. So secondly, since 2000s, he has been working on the problem of Eurocentrism in social sciences, from which he developed into a book titled Alternative Discourses in Asian Social Science, Responses to Eurocentrism, which was published in English in 2006 and has been translated into the Indonesian language in 2010 and in Persian in 2012 and 14 in 2 versions. So the content of today's talk is also part of his broad research field on alternative discourses in the social sciences. And as a result of his actual creation of the alternative decolonial discourse and options in knowledge production, Professor Farid Alatas and his colleague Vineeta Sinha at NUS, they co-authored an important book titled Sociological Theory Beyond the Canon in 2017, in which they critique on the existing canon in sociology and challenge the dominant account of the development of sociological theory, and further introduce non-Western and female thinkers in sociology who are often neglected due to Eurocentrism and Androcentrism. So apart from the 2 categories that I've mentioned about Prof. Farid Alatas' work, he has also been working on the 14th century Arab Muslim thinker Ibn Khaldun. So he published 2 books on the thinker. In 2013, he published Ibn Khaldun in the Makers of Islamic Civilization series with Oxford, and in 2014 he published Applying Ibn Khaldun, the Recovery of a Lost Tradition in Sociology. So he has also been involved in inter-religious dialogues in Malaysia and Singapore. His books and An Islamic Commitment to Inter-Religious Dialogue was published in 2018 in Kuala Lumpur, and as he also served as the council member of the Inter-Religious Organization in Singapore, as a service to the local community, he was frequently asked to give talks on Islam and on inter-religious issues to civil servants and to the public in Singapore and Malaysia. So he is also a frequent contributor to several print and online media in Singapore and Malaysia as a columnist, including the Straits Times, TH, and Malaysia Kini, in which he comments on many issues in contemporary society, including religious extremism, the Sunni and Shia divide, the corruption and kleptocracy of leaders, and mediocracy in universities and so on. So this is a brief introduction to Professor Farid's work, and I hope that later we can have more discussion, because his field is very broad and he can really share about his knowledge of Islam and also social thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation, of course, to come to your institute. I'm going to give an outline of what I think are the major issues regarding the problem of Eurocentrism in the social sciences. Although I say social sciences, I think I really mean social sciences and humanities. Although most of the time my examples come from sociology, anthropology, sometimes from religious studies, and occasionally from history and literature. Now let me begin by saying that there is a distinction that should be made between old Eurocentrism and new Eurocentrism. By the old Eurocentrism, I mean an orientation existing among Europeans, which looks at the non-European in a derogatory manner. Now this was typical in the scholarship for centuries actually, but even up to the 19th century, even the early part of the 20th century, you find scholarship on the non-West as exhibiting these traits regarding, well, there are so many examples, looking at Islam, looking at Hinduism, for example, looking at Hindus as heathens. Even in the 18th century, Hinduism was not defined as a religion, it was defined as heathenism by many Europeans. Marx and Engels referred to Islam as a fake religion. They were not religious, they were atheists, but they didn't refer to Christianity as a fake religion. So probably what they meant was that Jesus was genuine, he believed that he was God or he was a prophet of God, but Muhammad was a charlatan. And so you will find stereotypes about various ethnic groups throughout the world, stereotypes about Africans, stereotypes about the Chinese as being greedy or money-minded, about the Malays, the Malay world, Malaysia and Indonesia, or the Filipinos as being lazy. This was the characteristic, this idea of this derogatory attitude towards the other, towards the native. Now, by the 20th century, and certainly after the Second World War, these derogatory attitudes, you could say, disappeared. Although they still exist in popular culture. If you look at the Hollywood portrayal of the other, of the Asians, of Africans, of Arabs, of Persians, you find that you still find these traits. But in scholarship, you won't find anthropologists or sociologists or historians who display such an orientation. But there is still, so this is what I mean by the new Orientalism or the new Eurocentrism. The new Orientalism or the new Eurocentrism. It is, scholarship is still Eurocentric, or scholarship is still Orientalist in view of at least three traits of current scholarship. Now one is that there is a subject-object dichotomy, by which I mean that the Europeans, and when I say European, I also mean American. I should really say Euro-American, but for sake of brevity, I just say Europeans. The European or the Westerner is the subject, the knowing subject, and the non-Westerner is the object of study, but not the knowing subject, not the knowing subject in the way that most of the time the non-Westerner does not supply the theoretical framework and the conceptual scheme, right? So this leads me to, so in other words, you find that the Western scholar, when I say Western also, I don't mean the entire West, because there are certain social science and humanities communities within the West that are dominant. So today, it's America, United States, Great Britain, to some extent France. These are the dominant social science or knowledge communities in terms of theory building and concept formation. So you could say that the Portugal, which is in the West, is actually maybe a third world country when it comes to social sciences, in the sense that in the sense that their position in terms of domination and being dominated, they mirror more many third world countries rather than the UK or France or the US. So you have the subject-object dichotomy, which when we say that Western scholars are the knowing subjects and people in the non-West are the objects, this takes us to the next trait of Eurocentrism, which is the marginalization of non-Western knowledge. Now, even when the West studies the non-West, and the total focus and attention is on the non-West, as I said earlier, it is through a conceptual framework that is based almost entirely in the West, and that is a result of immersion in the Western, in a Western conceptual scheme. In other words, when they study the non-West, they're not really concerned with non-Western conceptualizations of that very subject matter. Just to give you an example from the study of religion. Does anyone here study religion? Nobody studies religion. If you pick up a textbook on religion, it could be religious studies, it could be sociology of religion, or history of religion. Although various religions are studied, you will find that the conceptual vocabulary used to study religion is all derived from Christianity. Church, sect, denomination, cult, even the term religion itself, they are all derived from Christianity. This is because, of course, Europe, for hundreds of years, for more than 1,000 years, has been Christian. It's part of the culture, and it's natural that Christianity would inform the scientific vocabulary. But the fact that the modern study of religion has not thought it important enough to look at the conceptual vocabulary of other religions, even when other religions are studied, is a very telling example of Eurocentrism. For example, when you study divisions in Islam, study sects in Islam, surely you should know how Muslims themselves conceptualize sectarian differences. You can't simply use Christian derived terms that look at differences like denomination or sect and apply them to Buddhism or Hinduism or to Islam. And the reverse also holds true. You cannot use conceptual vocabulary from Islam to talk about Christianity. Of course, let me sort of revise that. It's possible that conceptual vocabulary from one religion is sufficiently universal that it can be applied to other religions. That's possible. But that is not a reason for us to ignore the conceptual vocabulary of the religion that we are studying. I mean, you know, if I were invited to speak at Cambridge University, let's just say I was an expert in Christianity and I was invited to speak about the history of Christianity at Cambridge University, and in my speech, I spoke about Christianity, but not once used the conceptual vocabulary of Christianity. I used the conceptual vocabulary of Islam. I talked about Christianity as a deen, the word for religion in Islam is deen. I talked about the Christian madahib, the Christian schools, and so on and so forth. I think I would not be taken seriously as a scholar. I would, first of all, probably not be invited to speak in Europe about Christianity. But yet this is what is happening in our part of the world. Right? Western scholars are held to be experts, but there is a systematic marginalization of ideas from within the various societies that they are studying. Just to give another example, and I think you all are familiar with this. How many of you have a background in sociology? What about anthropology? Anthropology and sociology. And political science? Okay. I think you all